Did you ever think that having sex could quietly take a heavier toll on your body after a certain age? For many older men, intimacy isn't what it used to be, and not just emotionally. The physical and mental aftershocks often linger in ways no one talks about. Maybe it's a strange fatigue the next morning, or an ache that wasn't there the night before. Sometimes the real cost only becomes clear when it's already too late. This isn't about shaming anyone for wanting closeness. On the contrary, staying sexually active later in life can be one of the healthiest choices you make. But just like everything else, what your body could handle effortlessly in your 40s or 50s starts to shift. The question is, are you paying attention to what it's trying to tell you now? Sex, once so natural and spontaneous, becomes something you might think twice about. Not because the urge is gone, but because the body now demands a kind of awareness you never had to worry about before. And for many older men, this comes as a shock, not because they aren't still capable of deep connection, but because the terms of that connection have changed. There's this illusion that sex is ageless if you're doing it right, that the only barriers are mindset or willingness. But the truth is much more nuanced. Hormones shift, muscles tighten, circulation slows, and suddenly what once felt effortless now requires effort. Not effort in desire, but in preparation, presence, and recovery. What once took a few hours to bounce back from might now take days, and the silence around that shift is deafening. When you're young, you don't think twice about staying up late, breaking a sweat, or skipping a meal before an intimate night. But past 60, and certainly into the 70s, those choices can echo for days in your joints, your heartbeat, your clarity. Some men begin to notice that after sex, they feel a strange dip in mood or energy, a kind of fog that doesn't quite lift the next day. At first, it seems isolated, but then it becomes a pattern. And instead of talking about it, they pull back, not out of disinterest, but out of fear. It's a strange place to find yourself, still very much alive with desire, still yearning for touch and closeness, but hesitant to fully engage because the aftermath feels unpredictable. That unpredictability creates its own kind of anxiety. What if I feel dizzy again? What if my blood pressure drops? What if I can't sleep? That anxiety, in turn, can sabotage the experience before it even begins, because the mind, once uneasy, can be the most powerful barrier of all. And there's another layer, one that many overlook: medication. Tiny pills that line bathroom cabinets, taken every morning without thought, often hold the hidden key to these quiet disruptions. Whether it's for blood pressure, cholesterol, depression, or even allergies, so many medications have ripple effects on arousal, stamina, and satisfaction. But because the changes are gradual, most men don't connect the dots. They simply assume it's aging, when in truth it might be chemistry. Doctors rarely mention these side effects unless directly asked. And most men don't ask. Not because they don't want to know, but because they've been conditioned to keep these concerns to themselves, to push through, to adapt without complaint. It's a kind of stoicism that made sense in another era, but becomes a disservice when it blocks intimacy and well-being. When a man starts to feel his body failing him in those private moments, a quiet shame can settle in. He may question his masculinity, wonder if he's still desirable, or worse, begin to believe that part of his life is over. That's when withdrawal sets in, not just from sex, but from connection itself. And that is the real danger, because it's not age that disconnects people. It's silence. It's the quiet shame that grows when the body changes, but no one talks about it. But what if, instead of retreating, we leaned into those changes? What if we stopped pretending the goal was to perform like we were 20 and started focusing on something far deeper and more lasting? There is an extraordinary opportunity here, hidden inside these limitations. It's the chance to rediscover intimacy not as performance, but as presence. not as conquest, but as communion. There's a kind of peace that comes with this shift. Once the fight to prove something fades away, once the need to impress dissolves, and all that's left is the realness of two people choosing to share something vulnerable, that kind of closeness doesn't burn fast. It glows slowly. It warms from the inside out, and it lasts longer, not just in memory, but in healing. But this transition also asks something difficult. Honesty, not just with a partner, but with oneself. It means acknowledging when you're tired. It means saying no without guilt. It means taking breaks, drinking more water, maybe adjusting the lighting or even the schedule. It might mean fewer late nights and more mid-mornings. It might mean skipping alcohol or eating something nourishing before an intimate moment. These changes aren't losses. They're adaptations. They're wisdom in motion. There's also the emotional component that becomes impossible to ignore. In earlier decades, sex might have been driven more by impulse or novelty, but as time passes, it becomes something richer and, paradoxically, more fragile. Without emotional connection, the spark often fades. Physical touch, no matter how practiced, begins to feel hollow without a sense of safety, tenderness, and being seen. It's not about becoming sentimental. It's about becoming real. Age strips away a lot of the distractions. What remains is what's true. And that truth often looks like stillness, patience, a slower rhythm. It looks like laughter afterward, not rushing away. It looks like lying in silence without needing to fix anything. It looks like gratitude instead of expectation. For many men, this new territory is both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because they're no longer chasing some unreachable ideal. Terrifying because they're forced to feel things they were never taught to name. But those feelings, when met with curiosity instead of fear, can lead to the most profound experiences of their lives. Not just sexual experiences, but human ones. The kind that heal old wounds. The kind that remind them they are still whole, still powerful, still deeply needed. And there's something else, too. A shift in pace doesn't mean a loss of passion. In fact, when slowness is chosen instead of imposed, it can create room for even greater pleasure. It allows the body to awaken gently, fully. It allows the breath to settle, the nerves to calm. It invites exploration instead of expectation. And that in itself becomes its own kind of thrill, a quiet intensity that no quick encounter could ever match. But to reach this place, you have to be willing to let go. Let go of comparisons. Let go of the pressure to perform. Let go of the fear that something's wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. Your body is evolving. That's all. Just like it did during adolescence. Just like it did during your prime. This is another chapter. Not an ending, but a refinement. Not less, but different. Recovery becomes sacred. Rest isn't failure, it's wisdom. If your heart beats a little harder afterward, take that seriously. If your mind feels cloudy or your legs weak, listen. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means your body needs kindness. And the more you give it that, the more it gives back. You don't win intimacy by pushing harder. You deepen it by showing up fully, as you are. Even the quiet moments after sex, the ones that used to be filled with sleep or distractions, now become essential. They're the time when everything settles, when feelings surface, when connection deepens. Many men miss this because no one told them how important it was. But that space, the breathing, the soft words, the held hands, is not extra. It's part of the whole. And when that part is neglected, something always feels unfinished. This new phase of intimacy asks for courage. The kind of courage that isn't loud or flashy, but steady. It's the courage to say, this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. And I still want to share this with you. That openness can feel risky, especially for those who've spent a lifetime believing that strength means silence. But true strength lies in vulnerability, in being able to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm still here. Emotional safety becomes the foundation for everything. It's no longer just about touch or attraction. It's about trust. The kind of trust that lets a man exhale completely, knowing he won't be judged for what his body can or cannot do. It's about being met with kindness instead of criticism. And that shift changes everything. Because once that safety is present, the body starts to relax in ways it hasn't in years. Tension leaves the muscles. Breath deepens. Pleasure becomes possible again. Not because something was fixed, but because the fear has been removed. And when fear goes, presence rushes in to take its place. This is where intimacy transforms, not into something lesser, but into something truer. There's a different kind of passion that lives in slowness, a fire that doesn't burn out quickly, but simmers steadily. One that doesn't need to prove itself in grand gestures because it lives in quiet connection. It's in the way two people look at each other without saying a word. It's in the gentle squeeze of a hand, the way one breath syncs with another. These are the moments that matter most now, not just because they feel good, but because they feel real. So much of youth is spent chasing novelty, but with age comes a deeper understanding of what's lasting. Sex becomes less about the peak and more about the presence, less about finishing, more about feeling. And ironically, this shift often leads to even greater pleasure. Not because the body's doing more, but because the mind is finally quiet enough to receive what the body offers. Men who embrace this change often find themselves rediscovering joy, not just in the act itself, but in the anticipation, the shared moments, the emotional closeness that lingers. They stop chasing performance and start cultivating connection. And in doing so, they begin to heal wounds they didn't even know they carried. Wounds from years of pressure, comparison, or silence. This doesn't mean that the physical challenges disappear. Circulation may still fluctuate. Erections may still be less reliable. Energy may still rise and fall in unpredictable ways. But the meaning attached to those changes shifts. They're no longer seen as failures, but as signals, invitations to slow down, to adjust, to listen more deeply. And with that listening comes wisdom. For those who have partners, this can be a time of profound renewal, a chance to explore each other again, with new eyes and gentler hands. For those without partners, it can be a time to redefine what sensuality even means. Touch doesn't need to be sexual to be healing. Connection doesn't need to be romantic to be intimate. The body still hungers for closeness, and there are countless ways to feed that hunger. With conversation, with movement, with art, with care. What becomes clear with time is that aging isn't the enemy. Denial is. Avoidance is. Silence is. But when a man begins to meet his body where it is, not where it used to be or where he wishes it were, a new freedom unfolds. He stops fighting time and starts dancing with it. He starts seeing his experiences not as limitations, but as wisdom earned. And that wisdom, when shared, becomes a gift for others as well. Imagine how many younger men could benefit from hearing the truth, not just about sex, but about resilience, about tenderness, about how real intimacy isn't measured in stamina, but in presence, about how satisfaction doesn't come from doing more, but from feeling more. Older men carry that knowledge, and the world needs it now more than ever. The final truth is this: sex after 60, 70, or even 80 isn't a lesser version of what came before. It's a different path entirely, one that requires patience, humor, honesty, and a little courage. But on that path is something richer than performance. It's connection, it's truth. It's the soft, sacred space between bodies that no longer need to impress, only to be present. And in that presence, everything changes. So if you've been feeling uncertain, if your body surprises you or your energy feels different, if you wonder whether it's all worth the effort, the answer is yes. It is worth it. Not because of what you can still do, but because of who you still are. You are not less. You are more seasoned, more aware, more capable of the kind of intimacy that leaves a lasting mark. Let this time be an invitation, not to chase youth, but to embrace wisdom, to move slowly, to speak honestly, to touch with reverence, to listen, not just to your partner, but to yourself. And most of all, to trust that even now, especially now, your capacity for joy, for pleasure, and for love has not faded. It has only just begun to unfold in a deeper, quieter, more powerful way. Because true intimacy doesn't retire, it deepens. And if this message resonated with you, if you found a piece of yourself in these words, consider subscribing to this channel. Together, we're building a space where silence is replaced by truth and age is celebrated not as a limitation, but as a new beginning. You're not alone. You're just entering a deeper chapter, and it's going to be beautiful.